Let's go.
Get your copy of Fire. It's definitely a must-read. If you enjoy hood books, this one is it. Just like the title of the book, it's officially Fire. Get it on Amazon, paperback or Kindle.
Peace. This is The Enemy's Public, and I am Bro.Nasir. I hope everyone is enjoying their evening. Yet this evening, I want to discuss hate crimes and why they're overlooked when it's our people who are the victims. Also, I want to discuss why when a massive shooting take place, it's always referred to as a mental health issue, and they try to make it seem like the perpetrator of the heinous crime is a lone wolf, when in fact, these people are a part of an organization, and 9 times out of 10, even if it's a child, these people were sent. And also, why are our children seen as adult and other people's children are seen as children, even if they are the same age? Because they always, regardless to what or how heinous the crime is, they'll try to downgrade it and say this person is only a kid. Now, yesterday, there was a school shooting in Georgia, about an hour away from Atlanta. A 14-year-old walked up into a school. I guess this young man was a freshman, and he walked up into the school and shot 4 people, 2 students, 2 teachers. And all 4 people he shot met their demise. This young man, this killer, name was Colt Gray, and he's being referred to as the teen who shook America. Now, 16 minutes ago, the father of the teen, Colt Gray, was arrested because, again, of course, his son used his firearm to go up into a school and kill people. And they said that they're surprised, the father did, because he never had unsupervised access to the weapons when a 14-year-old shouldn't have any access to a firearm. But we all know this is Georgia. I'm not saying the law should be more strict, because I'm for people being able to carry guns, but I just don't like it when they make it hard for our people to carry guns. I'm all for carrying guns. I'm in New Jersey. New Jersey has the, most strict gun laws probably in the country. They don't want nobody carrying guns besides like armored car drivers and some type of law enforcement or security. They don't want citizens carrying nothing, absolutely nothing. And that need to change, because everyone who are law abiding, if they want to exercise their Second Amendment, they should be able to do so. They should be able to carry a weapon. See, New Jersey has peace to my brother Big Dog, Philly OG. Thanks for tapping in. New Jersey has concealed carry, which is to me a trap. Concealed carry is a trap to me, because if a cop see the bulge in your shirt and you're one of us, you're automatically seen as suspicious. And a brother is not synonymous to carrying a weapon. They don't want us carrying weapons. They don't want us having weapons. So that's the thing. They want to disarm you and then victimize you. Always have the upper hand. They always want to have the upper hand on us, because you will see police officers cuffing people and then striking them, punching them in the face, striking them, kicking them while they're down and cuffed. And they will also cuff you after shooting you. They'll still put the cuffs on you after shooting you. And when they shoot you, they don't say they fired a shot. They get on the radio and say shots fired, as if they're being attacked. Like they're being attacked. They'll say shots fired, as if they're being attacked, instead of saying they fired a shot. They always wanted to seem like they are protecting themselves, or they are under attack, when most case scenario, I can say that with confidence. Most case scenario, the police are the aggressors when they encounter people on the street. If you encounter a cop and you don't comply with them, even when most case scenario is a unlawful request or order, if you don't comply with them, they get very angry and violent. And they always threaten you with violence. That's their go-to. They don't have a problem with threatening and responding to someone with violence. They don't care who it is. It can be a child. they would threaten that child with violence, and they would actually carry it out violently with a child inside a school where the dean, vice principal, guidance counselor, the faculty and staff is charged with protecting the students in the child's parents' absence. Yet they'll let somebody come in that school and harm a child when they're charged with protecting that child. Peace to my brother P. Moses. Thank you for tapping in, good brother. They're charged with protecting the child, but they will let anybody come and harm the child. Now, I know everyone's seen the video footage of the cop going into the classroom and flipping a young sister out her desk because she wouldn't comply with what the teacher asked her to do. Not a violent situation. The cop came into the classroom and committed violence over a defiant child when it wasn't even a police issue. The police shouldn't have been in the classroom in the first place, but that's what they do to our children. They call the police on our children. A young sister was going back and forth with a college professor because the college professor said something derogatory towards our people. And the sister stood up for us. Not a violent situation, just a back and forth verbally. They came in and they arrested the young sister who's a student. These are just examples of how they expect us to capitulate and acquiesce to them. A brother taking his child to school, and the police pulls them over. They do their business as far as whether citation a cop's going to write him. So when the cop obstructed traffic, the brother cussed him out, told him to get the hell out of his way. When the brother went to court, to deal with the ticket that the cop had given him. The judge, another entity that I really dislike because they are power hungry. They have too much power, and your life and your livelihood depends on how they're feeling when they wake up in the damn morning. The judges. If that judge is in a bad mood, even if he knows it's unethical, and he won't get away with it, he'll do it for the time being, violating your rights, holding you in contempt, committing contempt while holding you in contempt because he has a chip or she has a chip on his or her shoulders. And these mindless robots will behave like they know everything when they don't even know their job. Don't even know their job. And they should quarterly be quizzed on what consists of their job. They need to learn case law, municipal law, state law, and federal law. If you're going to be in law enforcement, you should know all of that. These dudes don't even know case law. They they periodically should be quizzed on all of this. But they are given 6 months of training, about a month or two with an FTO, and if he's an idiot, he's going to train him to be an idiot. If he violates people's rights and don't go according to departmental policy, he's going to teach his trainee the same thing that he does. And he's also going to discourage the trainee and have the trainee disregard everything that he was taught or she was taught in the academy. No. And they're going to train them according to a culture of policing. Not what they're trained to do in the academy. They're going to train them according to the culture of policing in that department. Yet, this young guy, Colt Gray, who killed the two students and the two teachers, they say they're going to try him as an adult, in which they should, and the father should have been arrested for having the guns that accessible to a 14-year-old, that he was able to take a AR-15 style long gun into a school and open fire inside a school. Yes, he should have been arrested. Now, hate crimes are overlooked when we are the victims. And also, exactly, my brother P. Moses, exactly. The rookies in all departments are trying to climb up the ladder, trying to make an impression, and a lot of them are chest out. Chest out. They run around being overzealous and scared at the same time. And if they're not from the place where they're assigned, as far as like municipality, the city, if they're not from that city, that officer is going to be trouble, because there's really no genuine concern of that officer if that officer don't live in the city he's charged with patrolling. He'll go back to where he live at and he'll brag to his friends about the blacks and the Latinos that he beat up. If it's a white guy, or even if it's a Hispanic guy who happens to look white, who's trying his best to be a honorary wannabe white supremacist, he'll do it to his own people. I've seen it. I've seen Hispanic officers have one of their own brothers in custody, and the Hispanic brother said something to the Hispanic cop in Spanish, and he went off like he called his mother out his name. That's how much he went off, because he talked to him and he tried to communicate with him in Spanish in front of his white counterparts. And being the fact that his white counterparts didn't understand what he was saying to him, he took offense to it, not the white cops. It gets really, really crazy. And nobody that's not from where we live should be a cop in our neighborhoods. That's just my sentiment. You should have to live there. You shouldn't be running around in our city. You have if you don't live there, you should have to move there to work there. That's it. You want the job, you got to come there and stay. Now, I'm going to show video footage of the school shooting in Georgia, and then I want to switch the subject to the mental health thing. They always try to say a hateful person when it comes to Caucasian people. They always try to say that they're mentally ill. When they are mentally ill normally, that's their normal way of thinking because they're taught to behave the way they behave. These wicked demons have mothers and fathers who taught them to be exactly the way they are. Sean Grayson was raised by somebody to be the hateful bastard, the hateful, murderous bastard that he is. On top of him being a damn coward, he was raised to be a cowardly, hateful bastard who's scared at the same time. He was taught to be that way. Now, I'm going to looking for the videos. I had them. Just give me a second. Bear with me. One second.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Nora O'Donnell in New York, and we are coming on the air with breaking news with another school shooting. This time about 45 miles northeast of Atlanta in Barrow County, Georgia. Now, the local sheriff's department said a suspect is in custody, and there are reports of casualties. Police say the alleged shooting occurred at about 10:23 a.m. at Appalachia High School, which has about 1,900 students. So it is a big high school. Parents, we're told, are now allowed to go to the campus and pick up their students. Georgia's Governor Brian Kemp issued a statement saying he has directed all available state resources to respond to the incident. The FBI's Atlanta office said it has agents on the scene to help coordinate and support local law enforcement efforts. CBS's Jared Eggleston is on the scene in Georgia, and he joins us now with the very latest. Jared, tell us what you see. What happened this morning?
Nora, good afternoon. Out here on the scene right now, it's still very active, a very chaotic scene. Within the last few minutes, even another life flight helicopter landed here on the property of the school that you can see just over my shoulder. Now, parents here on the scene, they swarmed here. As I got here, there were cars in about every mile, about a mile radius around the school, with parents just leaving their cars on the side of the road so that they could rush to the school to be reunified with their students. Now, I've been talking with some of the parents as I've been out here over the last half hour or so, and a lot of them are just anxiously awaiting the return of their students. And as you mentioned, Nora, the school is working on reunifying the students and their families right now.
Jared, can you describe how many ambulances were on the scene. How many of those life flight helicopters have you seen?
I've seen at least two circling the school since I got here. And like I said, one of them actually landed. I would say at least 30 to 50 ambulances are here on the scene. They're still here on the scene right now. Some of them have started to leave even just as we've been talking, Nora. But there's a lot of ambulances here and a lot of police responses as well. As I was coming here, there's one highway that will get you to this school. It was constantly more first responders, more ambulances, more police coming to the school to assist with that response.
And Jared, describe the area for us.
This is a rural area outside of Atlanta. If you're familiar with Georgia.
Greetings, peace to my brother Hurricane JW. Peace, good brother. Thanks for tapping in.
Georgia. It is in between Atlanta and Athens, where the University of Georgia is. This is one of the growing community around Atlanta, one of the bigger areas where a lot of people are moving out in the suburbs. So it is rural, but it is still very big, a very big suburb of Atlanta. And as you said,
see, this is where it happens at. You know, people always talk about our communities. You know, we have our problems. We definitely have our problems. Yet, this don't happen like this in our communities. We have mass shootings and the self-destruction going on in our communities. 14-year-olds walking up in schools, shooting teachers and shooting their fellow students. And it's absolutely crazy. Peace to my good brother, Chris Cyphers TSL. Thanks for tapping in, good brother. Yeah, this happens very often. A child will get access to its parents' guns and walk up into a school and just shoot people in the schools. And what they'll try to do, I don't like when they say, okay, this person's a lone wolf when they go do a mass shooting. And this child is a reflection of how he was raised. He was raised to be the violent killer that he is. He and his father was questioned last spring by the FBI because they were planning to do what this young man did yesterday. And they disregarded it. And tragedy struck yesterday in a school. At the beginning of the school year, tragedy struck.
Said Nora, this is also very big, one of the bigger high schools in the county.
How long have parents been able to come and pick up their students? When did the lockdown end?
The lockdown ended about, I would say, half hour, 45 minutes ago. Right when I got on the scene was when the school district actually made a release saying that an incident did happen here at this school and that parents would then be able to be reunified with their students. And as I've been standing here, the police keep directing the families towards that scene where they want everyone to kind of meet that reunification point. But a lot of people, as you know, Nora, are just so nervous about what has happened here right now. So that has led to some of the chaos that we're still seeing here on the scene.
CBS's Jared Eggleston on the scene, this developing situation. Just to repeat, one suspect in custody at this hour. There are casualties, and as Jared described, dozens, in his words, of ambulances were on the scene, including those helicopters, to help with some of those casualties. Want to bring in now our CBS News law enforcement expert, Rodney Harrison. He is a former police commissioner from the New York City area. And Rodney, now that this suspect is in custody, what are the next steps for law enforcement?
Yeah, so we have to take a closer look at our subject and identify, is he a lone wolf? Is he involved with somebody else? Was he put up to this? Also, we have to take a look at the other local schools and make sure that those schools are evacuated as well. So we have to find out what was the motive, what caused this individual to be involved with this active shooter and do such a horrible incident, but also make sure that the surrounding schools are safe going forward. And that's important regarding getting kids out of the schools, evacuating those schools, and getting them home safely to their families.
Mm-hmm. And Rodney, this has become all too common in America, these school shootings. What is the profile of a school shooter like this?
Now, not one police officer should get up and speak in a self-righteous manner. No one in government really have the credibility to talk about how terrible this is. It is terrible, but they don't have the credibility to say how terrible this is. Because look how violent law enforcement is when they're supposed to keep the peace. Look how violent the United States is. Look how they settle their differences with other nations when they don't get their way. Look at America's foreign policy altogether. Their foreign policy causes violence. Whenever you go and you take a nation's natural resources or any resources they have, you strip them of everything they have, and you leave them in a condition that the people are desperate. You leave them in a condition that causes civil war, which is what this nation do all over the world. All over the world, when they go somewhere, when they leave it in a condition that causes civil war. Because everybody's going for theirs, because they're fighting over scraps. Nobody could get up here and talk about how terrible this is when they don't have the moral credibility to speak about this. The profile that this young man fits is the same profile that will have a Illinois Sheriff's Department hire him. This same young man, if he hadn't done this yesterday with his violent tendencies, he could have grown up and been on somebody's police department. Like a Sean Grayson, who shot our sister Sonia Massey. That's the same profile this shooter in this school has.
You know, it's unfortunate that these school shooters come in different forms and fashion and different sizes and different shapes. Listen, you know, it could be anything from someone being bullied.
You notice that he didn't say color. He didn't say color because he know who predominantly do this shit. He knows who predominantly do this shit. And most of us know if we put our hands on our parents' gun, we have dire consequences with our parent. You put our hand on our parents' gun, we would have had dire consequences for touching that.
At school to somebody that just wants to use this as a platform to get a message across. So there is no cookie cutter way of looking at anybody that does this act of violence. But I will say this is important, that all local law enforcement work with their local school districts to make sure.
You said it, Chris, and I stand on it. How about that, good brother?
That we have things in place because these incidents are happening too often.
Our CBS News law enforcement expert, Rodney Harrison, thank you very much. And just to update, one suspect in custody after authorities received a report of an active shooting at Appalachia High School, which is about 45 miles northeast of Atlanta. The school went into lockdown. Number of ambulances and helicopters on the scene to transport casualties to local hospitals. At this hour, according to the local sheriff's office, parents are allowed to come pick up their kids. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, your local news. And then tonight, we will have a full wrap-up on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News special report. I'm Nora O'Donnell in New York.
Now we're going to take a look at the shooter. I think he mad because he needed a haircut and he didn't get a haircut. Because he damn sure need a haircut.
New information is emerging about the Georgia teenager who police say opened fire at his high school yesterday. 2 students and 2 teachers were killed and at least 9 others were injured. The FBI says this suspect was on their radar. Mark Strassman has the latest from Winder, Georgia.
Students and community members left flowers and comforted one another at a memorial growing like the grief outside Appalachia High School. A shooting by a fellow student Wednesday killed 14-year-old Christian Angulo and Mason Schermerhorn and teachers Richard Aspinwall and Christina Irami.
He was very sweet and very funny and chill, you know.
Angulo's classmate is mourning the loss of her friend. She said she's also thinking about the suspect.
I just hope that the shooter finds God and that God forgives what they did.
2 school resource officers confronted the suspect and took him into custody. Police say he was armed with an AR platform-style weapon. A chaplain who is aiding law enforcement has a message for parents.
Talk to your children. Be engaged in your children's life. One conversation can change a whole lot. One conversation can cost a whole lot.
Law enforcement says it did pay a visit to suspect Colt Gray and his father in May of 2023, following reports that the then...
Absolutely, Hurricane JW. They always got to say they hope he found God. Perhaps his God told him to do that bullshit. Perhaps his God is the God of evil.
13-year-old had possibly threatened to shoot up a middle school the next day. After a tip from a user of the social media site Discord, the FBI tracked a troubling account to the Georgia teen. At the time, he denied posting the threats, and his father said he owned guns, but his son did not have access to them. Deputies say they cleared the case because of inconsistent information. The suspect's first court appearance is scheduled for Friday morning. Mark Strassman, CBS News. Why?
Like the parents who was just found guilty and sent to prison, they were actually coaching their child. They was actually coaching him on how to carry out the school shooting. Coached him. But then when he did it, they wanted to act like they were remorseful. This young man should be tried as an adult. Wherever an adult, you want to do some grown man things, you should be in that grown prison.
Winder, Georgia.
We got more of the same situation.
Well, good morning. I'm Anne Marie Green, and this morning, another American community is reeling from deadly gun violence after a horrific mass shooting.
Again, the father and the shooter were questioned last year because the FBI got wind of them planning to do, I don't know which one of them, but they were questioned last year about them being on the radar, planning to do a shooting. And they were questioned and let go. and we see the results of that.
At Georgia High School, investigators say a student opened fire at Appalachian High School in Widener, Georgia. Yesterday morning, 4 people were killed. 9 others were injured. Officers confronted the 14-year-old suspect at the scene and took him into custody, and they say that he was armed with an AR-style weapon. The victims were identified as 2 14-year-old students and 2 teachers. Police identified the alleged shooter as Colt Gray, who they say will be charged with murder and tried as an adult. The high school is located roughly 45 miles northeast of Atlanta, and that is where we find CBS News' Dave Malkoff, who is following the very latest on this tragic situation. Dave, good morning.
It really is, Anne-Marie, and it is now the...
Brother Chris, it actually was 2 students and 2 teachers. That were 2 young men were killed, a female teacher and a male teacher, both math teachers that were that met their demise after the shooting.
The worst case of school violence in Georgia state history. When parents tried to get here, it was very difficult. It was traffic time of the day, but also the streets were blocked off because of this police activity. They didn't care about that. They abandoned their cars by the side of the road, left the doors swinging, and just came running. In some cases, 2.5 miles to get right here, to get to their kids.
Let's begin to change.
A community is in mourning after another unspeakable American tragedy. Yesterday, just before
The word American and tragedy is very synonymous. American and tragedy is very synonymous. Go hand in hand.
10:30 a.m., police say a 14-year-old student carrying an AR-style rifle opened fire at Appalachian High School, located just about an hour outside of Atlanta.
The gunshots were so close to me, like my ears started ringing real bad. Like the whole classroom was smoking. I saw one of my classmates on the ground, bleeding so bad.
Students and teachers barricaded themselves in classrooms.
You can hear gunshots like just ringing out through the school, and like you're just wondering like which one of those is going to be somebody that you're like best friends with or somebody that you love.
The suspected...
Yeah, damn, dude, you look like dude who did it. He looks like dude who did it.
Shooter, identified as Colt Gray, was taken into custody alive. Later, roughly 1,900 students were escorted out.
He was taken in alive, but we can't even walk away from a goddamn traffic stop. But he was taken in alive after killing 4 people.
Out of the school and onto the football field where they reunited with their families. The FBI says the suspect and his father were both questioned by Jackson County Sheriff's officials last year after they received anonymous online tips about a school shooting threat. But at that point, they did not have probable cause to make an arrest.
When someone preys on kids, it's tragic.
Last night, we learned the names of the 2 14-year-olds who were killed, Mason Schermerhorn and Christian Angelo. Also killed were 2 math teachers, Christina Aramy and Richard Aspinwall. 8 other students and 1 teacher were all taken to local hospitals with gunshot wounds, but they are expected to survive. Last week, the school swapped out the IDs for all of the faculty who are here at the school. Why does that matter? Well, these are a new kind of ID that actually has a panic button on it. When you press that panic button, you can put the whole school into a lockdown. It will send out your GPS coordinates down to exactly which part of the classroom you are in. It will send out alerts throughout the school, lock it all down, and have police come running. So nobody actually had to call the police.
Yeah, I agree, Chris, but if you are doing a random shooting, it's not necessarily a controlled shooting. You really don't give a damn who you hit. You just in there just shooting indiscriminately.
They already knew this was going on because students, and actually the teachers, were able to press.
Not only that kid looks like he got some size on him too. He's no LeBron, but he got some size on him. And again, when you're shooting indiscriminately, not knowing or not caring who you hit, the recoil is not going to affect you.
That panic button right there.
That is absolutely remarkable. I'm sure they thought and hoped that they would never have to use that panic button, much less use it so soon after receiving it. I know the day is just starting there, but I don't know if you've been able to talk to people, but what's it been like there on the ground?
It's really, really rough for a lot of parents, for a lot of alumni, for a lot of students. We talked to them yesterday here at the school and also at a candlelight vigil that was the most quiet candlelight vigil I've ever been to, with hundreds and hundreds of people from rival schools, from people who went to school here in the district a long time ago, including the sheriff himself. He went to this district, and everybody was remembering these 4 people. We're talking about 2 14-year-old students who were shot and killed here, and 2 math teachers here, and they are all remembered. There are also 9 other people who are in the hospital, all with gunshot wounds of some kind. None of the people who went to the hospital because of any other injury except for gunshot wounds, according to the sheriff that I talked to yesterday. But they are all expected to survive in this. But these emotional scars,
Absolutely,
will last for a very, very long time.
Yeah, most definitely, Dave. Thank you very much.
We're gonna go to the information about the shooting victims.
All right. In other news tonight, new information emerging about the Georgia teenager who police say opened fire at his own school on Wednesday, killing 2 of his fellow students and 2 of his teachers and injuring 9 of his classmates. Now, the FBI says the suspect had actually been on their radar. Mark Strassman has the latest from Georgia tonight.
Students and community members left flowers and comforted one another at a memorial growing like the grief outside Appalachia High School. A shooting by a fellow student Wednesday killed 14-year-old Christian Angulo and Mason Schermerhorn, and teachers Richard Aspinwall and Christina Irami.
He was very sweet and very funny and chill,
Angulo's classmate is mourning the loss of her friend. She said she's also thinking about the suspect.
I just hope that the shooter finds God and that God forgives what they did.
2 school resource officers confronted the suspect and took him into custody. Police say he was armed with an AR platform-style weapon. A chaplain who is aiding law enforcement has a message for parents.
Talk to your children. Be engaged in your children's life. One conversation can change a whole lot. One conversation can cost a whole lot.
Law enforcement says it did pay a visit to suspect Colt Gray and his father in May of 2023, following reports that the then 13-year-old had possibly threatened to shoot up a middle school the next day. After a tip from a user of the social media site Discord, the FBI tracked a troubling account to the Georgia teen. At the time, he denied posting the threats, and his father said he owned guns, but his son did not have access to them. Deputies say they cleared the case because of inconsistent information. The suspect's first court appearance is scheduled for Friday morning. Prosecutors say he'll be charged as an adult. Mark Strassman, CBS News, Winder, Georgia.
Peace, my brother Leonard DeYuda. Thanks for tapping in. Appreciate it.
Well, during that suspect's interview with the FBI, his father told investigators that he and his son had moved to a new home following a divorce. And he said his son was having trouble at the previous middle school, but was, quote, doing better at that new school. So we obviously wanted to take a closer look at school shootings this year and in the past and what these numbers look like. And this is an amazing map. This is from
What I can't understand is, this is the beginning of the school year. I think Georgia go back to school in August. So they kind of into the school year, but it's still the beginning, but they're kind of into it. Yet, if he was being bullied, I still can't make an excuse for him going in there and just shooting up the school. And his father should have had his gun secured better than he had if his son had access to to those guns, he was able to go snatch them up and go into a school. He didn't secure them correctly.
The K through 12 shooting database. And right now, this shows all of the shootings that have been recorded.
Absolutely. That's a good question, Hurricane JW. If he was doing better in the school that he's in now, what happened? That's a good question.
In schools, school shootings since 1969. If you're wondering which state has the most school shootings, that is California. They have had 274 shootings. What's the second state? Texas, close behind them at 274 shootings. Florida then comes in next. But perhaps the most shocking details when we looked at this as a whole is how the number of school shootings has steadily increased year by year. What you're looking at right now, this was back in 2021. In 2021 in the United States, we saw 256 shootings. Then in 22, that number went up to 308 school shootings.
This is a violent society, and the children are behaving by what they see and by the example that's leading this nation. Because 4 years from now, if that young man had kept his nose clean, that too, brother, Hurricane JW, MK Ultra, absolutely. 4 years from now, 3 years from now, that same young man could have joined the military and killed for the United States. Anywhere they sent him, he could have got some training and he could have went and killed for the United States. Anybody they say kill, he could have done that. Because that's the example this nation leads. Violent.
Then in 2023, that number up almost 40 more school shootings. In 2023, we saw 349 school shootings. So showing that they just keep going up year after year. And tonight, in the wake of the deadly school shooting in Georgia, many parents have concerns about how they would contact their child in case of an emergency at school. As you know, a new model policy was just
in all actuality, I would have reservations, or I would be apprehensive about my child going to a school that's not in the hood. If my child's going to go to school, the school system, the public school system, because it seems to me the schools that's in the hood are safer, because everywhere we have these mass shootings, school shootings, it's the schools where there's a few of us sprinkled around in the school and it's predominantly white. Those are the schools that had the shootings. Those hood schools, metal detectors, and cops in the school. There's no cops in the school. Cops had to respond. There's no resource officers that's armed in these schools. And that's why they're able to walk up in there with guns. And in Uvalde, Texas, they had resource officers. They had school police officers who stood down while an 18-year-old ran through the school and shot students and teachers.
Just adopted by our state board of education that requires students to store their phones from the start of the school day to the end. It does not require schools to institute a campus-wide ban. Jason Raven with the Department of Education says it will be left up to the individual districts to decide where those phones are allowed to be stored.
The policy that the State Board of Education adopted does not outright ban cell phones on school campuses. This is for instructional day-to-day. Obviously, in an emergency situation, the focus of everybody changes to safety and communication. Students need to listen to the adult in the room, and when it is safe to do so, reconnect with their families in the various communication modes that are possible.
Well, Raven also says the department will be working with law enforcement officials to put on guidance to schools on how they should navigate these phone policies during emergencies like, God forbid, a school shooting.
Now we'll go to, what they're saying about the shooter. And
a Georgia community continues to grieve following the nation's latest school.
Colt Gray, he's going to be tried as an adult. Of course, we're sticking to the subject. I'm going to move on from this in a little bit and go to something that was on my mind all today. I was thinking about Elijah Alamein. I was thinking about him, and I want to go back and revisit that situation, because they like to say when one of us is murdered by one of them, it's mental illness. When it's not, they don't want to say it's a hate crime. They want to say the person is mentally ill, and I don't buy that.
School shooting. 2 students and 2 teachers died at Appalachia High School, about an hour northeast of Atlanta. A 14-year-old student is in custody, and authorities say he'll be tried as an adult. NBC's Priya Sridhar is at the school in Winder, Georgia.
I'm here at Appalachia High School, where the community is still mourning today. We're learning new information about both the suspect and the victims. The suspect has been identified as 14-year-old Colt Gray, who was a student at the school. And we're now learning that he was actually on the radar of the FBI just last year. They say authorities questioned both him and his father revealing that he did have hunting rifles inside of the house, but that Colt Gray did not have unsupervised access to them. We're also hearing from authorities that he used an AR-15 style weapon in this shooting. We don't have any more information about how he got that weapon or what his potential motive could be. We also know that the 4 deceased victims, 2 of them are 14-year-old students, 2 are math teachers. The remaining 9 victims are being treated in hospitals. 8 of them are students, 1 is a teacher, but they are all expected to survive. We also know that the teenage suspect will be charged with murder and tried as an adult. Back to you.
This was
a young demon shot like 13, 14 people. Yeah, he went up in there. They asked him what his motives. His motive is to kill. That's his motive.
The 5th school shooting so far this year, the deadliest U.S. school shooting since the March 2023 massacre at the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee, that left 6 people dead.
Either AR-15 or AR-15 style. That's what they say, Brother Hurricane.
The Georgia Bureau of Investigation has identified the gunman as 14-year-old Colt Gray. He's a student here at Appalachia High School. He's being charged with murder and will be tried as an adult. Right now, he's being held at a juvenile detention center. We'll get our first look at him at a virtual hearing on Friday. We're hoping to get a better idea of the motive as to why he brought a gun to this high school in the first place.
I'm just still in shock, and I just prayed that he would be okay.
I love you. Part of a flurry of texts Erin Clark got from her son at Appalachia High School as a shooter opened fire, killing 4 people and wounding 9 others. Clark's son surviving the violence, reuniting with his mom outside the school.
He's not a hugger, and I had to force him to hug me.
Tragically, 14-year-olds Mason Schermerhorn and Christian Angelo, as well as teachers Richard Aspinwall and Christina Ermey, were killed during the shooting. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation revealed the suspected gunman, a 14-year-old student named Colt Gray, began the shooting just after 10 a.m. He was arrested quickly after being confronted by a school resource officer. Right now, officials say there's no obvious connection between Gray and the victims.
This is everybody's worst nightmare.
Yes, sir, Hurricane JW. When it comes to this statistic, the United States got this. Can't nobody compete with, the United States when it comes to killing, when it comes to internal problems. Can't nobody beat the United States, not when it comes to violence. This nation has it covered.
And I just want to offer my sincere condolences and our thoughts and prayers to the families that have lost loved ones.
Wednesday night, members of the community gathered at a local park to pray for those who were hurt and killed. Less than a month.
I'm telling you, that young man fits the criteria. My honest sentiment, he fit the criteria of who would become a cop.
Month after school began at the high school of some 1,900 students.
I lived in Winder all my life. I'm 15. I've been here like a long time. And I just never thought. That's why my parents came here. It's such a peaceful town, and just nothing ever happened. I didn't think it would be here where I live.
On top of classes being canceled for the rest of the week, we're learning that a football game that was scheduled for Friday, that has also been canceled. Those images we saw yesterday of students who were evacuated out of the school behind me where they were gathered, that is where that game was set to take place.
There's a very nice school campus also. The campus is very nice.
We're also learning that one of those victims who was identified, Aspinwall, he was one of the coaches for this school. In Winder, Georgia, I'm Lee Waldman reporting.
Now we're going to go to the video. I believe they have some type of video of the scene where the shooting took place. I believe
at any moment now, Barrow County officials,
I think they going to show inside of a classroom where the students were hiding and the teacher were barricading the classroom.
Giving an update on that school shooting in Winder, Georgia. Right now, 4 dead, 9 injured. I want to go to Jonathan Siri in Atlanta with some new details. Jonathan.
Yeah, Charles, Barrow County Sheriff Judd Smith described this incident as an evil thing. And now we have some new video coming in, amateur mobile phone, smartphone video showing the scene inside the school as law enforcement went in to help bring the students to safety. You can hear them calmly but sternly giving instructions to the students to form a single file line, move out of the classroom, move out of the school, but also hurrying them along, saying that they had a whole school to evacuate. We're also hearing some interviews from students talking with local media, some of them saying that they saw a favorite math teacher who had been shot lying in a pool of blood. Some of the students pulled him into a classroom, barricaded the door, tried to administer first aid, tried to apply pressure to the wound to control the bleeding, but apparently to no avail. And so they had no choice but to wait until law enforcement could arrive. Clearly a tragic situation that no one's child should have to deal with. Charles.
Jonathan. Thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe.
Now, this is the last video pertaining to this situation, the father being arrested.
We do have the director there of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, also the Barrow County Sheriff. Let's listen.
We wanted to come back and update you on the progress of the case this evening. I appreciate you being here. In coordination with the District Attorney Brad Smith, the GBI has arrested Colin Gray, age 54, in connection to the shooting here at Appalachia High School. Colin is Colt Gray's father that was arrested yesterday. He is charged with the following: 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of second-degree murder, and 8 counts of cruelty to children. Mr. Gray, these charges stem from Mr. Gray knowingly allowing his son, Colt, to possess a weapon. This is a very difficult time, as we know, for students and parents, and so many I know of students and parents here in this county and around this state are afraid. You all have likely seen reports of incidents of other students making threats today at various schools around our state. In each of these incidents, Police, law enforcement took charges. They made arrests, acted very swiftly, as we take incidents like this very seriously across this state. This is a time for all of us as a community and a state to come together and remain vigilant. Students must be supported and encouraged here in this community and across the state to contact a member of their school faculty with any and all concerns of suspicious activity that they may see. Local, state, and federal law enforcement will continue to work together around the clock in relation to this incident here and any other incidents that come up around this state that raise concern to the safety of our students, faculty, and citizens here in the state of Georgia. Additionally, Colt Gray, that was arrested yesterday for this incident, has now been charged with 4 counts of felony murder. And again, we will continue to work tirelessly to complete this investigation as we move forward. I will go ahead and mention to you, and as I say sometimes, I'm going to go ahead and apologize to you. As y'all all know that this is a murder investigation. It is a very serious investigation, one that we take serious, one that we will continue to diligently work on and be very thorough with it, with the GBI and our local partners here. So you'll have to forgive us if we don't answer a lot of the questions that you ask. I know you have many, and we wish we could answer many of them for you, but we still obviously want to maintain the integrity of this investigation because it has a long way to go for it to be finished. Again, I also want to remind everyone that we need to continue to pray and support the victims that were involved here, the school teachers, the faculty, the students, obviously those that lost their lives, their families, and those that were injured. So I'd like to call on the sheriff to come and give you a brief update on the status of those that were injured from yesterday's event. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hosey. As Director Hosey said, I'd like to say that obviously we're lifting up those families. Our hearts are hurting for them, our kids, our students, our teachers. But the 9 injured, I am very happy to say will make a full recovery. And that's a testament to the response that we had, in my opinion, the response that medical staff responded with, in my opinion. And we're very happy to say that they will make a full recovery after that response. Again, please lift up our community. Please keep these children, these teachers. We call them teachers, but I call them heroes. We met with them today. Emotions are very high, obviously, but we told them that we love them. We love our teachers and what they do. And we're very happy at the fact that they stood in the gap between evil to protect their children, and we want to include them in the lives that were saved as well yesterday. But I wanted to report to you that all 9 people that are injured will expect to make a full recovery. Thank you. Are they still in the hospital? Several of them are still in the hospital. Some have been released.
And Director, can you please explain, did the father actually give the gun to the suspect?
Well, I'm gonna leave it as how I mentioned it in the release, that he knowingly allowed him to possess the weapon.
Director, can you tell us about how the arrest happened today? Did he turn himself in? Did you guys make contact with them? How did that go with investigators this afternoon with that arrest?
I'm honestly not familiar with the details. All I can tell you is that he is in custody at this time.
And is it likely anyone else will be arrested in this case?
It's difficult to say at this point in time. We're obviously still investigating this, following all leads, all evidence, and we'll set to see where it takes us as we progress forward. The arrest was made when we had the probable cause to make the arrest.
Do we know when his first court appearance will be?
I'm not sure. No,
Did the dad bring him to school?
I'm not sure about that either. I'm sorry.
Are you able to explain the charges and how he has more charges than suspected?
Not in great detail. The biggest thing, as I mentioned earlier, is that he is in custody at this point in time. His charges are directly connected with the actions of his son and allowing him to possess a weapon.
Sheriff, will he be housed in your facility? That way he'll be held. How does that move forward?
He'll be held in the Barrow County Detention Center.
Will his mugshot be available tonight, or will it take some time until tomorrow to get it?
It depends on how long it takes us to book him, but if it's available, we can get that to y'all tonight.
Sheriff,
if not tomorrow.
You said some good news that some have been released. Do you know the numbers of patients that are released, victims?
I don't want to speak to that because I don't know the exact number, but I know that I want to just report that all 9 would make a full recovery and be able to leave the hospital.
There were 9 people that were injured. Do we know if they are mixed with students and teachers or staff, or are they just?
I believe 2 were adult teachers, and the rest, which would be 7, would be students.
Director, can you explain whether there's precedent for charges like this?
I'm sorry?
Can you explain whether there's precedent in the state of Georgia as far as the GBI is concerned for the father or parent charged with the crime?
I don't have any details on any history of it, but I would venture to say it's not something new.
Can you tell us about the evidence that led to these charges?
No, ma'am, that's part of the ongoing investigation. I apologize.
I'm going to leave that right there and go to the other subject of, hate crimes are overlooked when we are the victims. Now, the young brother, Elijah Alamin, simply going to a convenience store. I believe they said he was going to get something to drink, and he was playing hip hop when he pulled up. And I think it was 27-year-old Caucasian dude, 27-year-old Caucasian dude. Walked up behind him and stabbed him, just stabbed him to death. And the reason why he said he stabbed him, because he was afraid of the rap music that he was listening to. That's why he said he stabbed him. He said that he got jumped in the past by some brothers who was playing hip hop. So when he seen this 17-year-old child get out the car and he was playing hip hop as he was walking into the convenience store, he said he felt frightened. So that's why he stabbed the young brother to death. Now, I'm going to the video now.
The killing of a 17-year-old black youth at a suburban convenience store in Arizona has garnered outrage among hundreds online. Elijah Alamin was just shy of 18 years old and about to enter his senior year of high school when he was attacked. 27-year-old Michael Adams is charged with fatally stabbing the teen in the throat at a Circle K store in Peoria. The hashtag Justice for Elijah began trending after Adams' arrest, with 2020 Democratic candidate Cory Booker tweeting, "Another one of our children has been murdered in a heinous and unprovoked way. The DOJ must investigate this hate crime immediately." When Adams was arrested with a pocket knife and blood on his body, he claimed he felt threatened by the rap music playing in Alamin's car. That's what has led some online to characterize the killing as a hate crime, though the suspect's attorney is calling it a failing on the part of the Arizona Department of Corrections.
It's both. It's both. It's not that alone. It's the failing of the Department of Corrections for letting him go. And it's a hate crime. It's both. More so a hate crime.
Adams has been released from state prison on an aggravated assault rap 2 days before his arrest, with his attorney suggesting her client is mentally ill and was released with, quote, no holdover meds, no way to care for himself. A statement from the Department of Corrections insists Adams was not designated seriously mentally ill when he was released. On Twitter, many are arguing
he's not mentally ill at all. The bastard is hateful. That's why it should be a hate crime.
That mental illness should not be used to excuse a possible hate crime. Adams could be sentenced to life in prison or death if convicted of first-degree murder.
I would suggest the second one. Nothing sanitary, not putting him to sleep like you would do euthanizing a dog. No, not like that. Firing squad. Now we're going to go to the next video about the same situation.
We moved to a very tragic and heinous story out of Phoenix, causing a ton of outrage. Another Black teen killed. Over the holiday weekend, 17-year-old Elijah Al-Amin was stabbed to death by a white man because the teen was listening to rap music. There was literally no other interaction. The man said the music made him feel unsafe. So I want to bring in Nohalani Graff in Phoenix with more on this story. Nohalani, I don't really have the words for what happened here. If you can just give us the latest.
So, Kimberly, your heart absolutely has to break for Elijah Alamin's family. First of all, they held a vigil right away so that friends and family had a way to come together and attempt to start the grieving process. And now they're in the process of planning a funeral for this unthinkable act. Then, of course, there's the suspect, Michael Adams. The state has come forward and said he will be charged with first-degree murder in this case. He's going to show up in court next week for a routine hearing as this process begins, but already the state is starting to build that case and dig back into his history. This is a man who spent nearly 3 years in prison and got out 2 days before this attack. Previously in prison for aggravated assault charges, his time extended for assaulting an officer while in prison. This time, according to witnesses, Elijah was simply filling up his gas. He pulled up, he had his speakers up, he's listening to what his sister says was probably old school hip hop because that's what he loved, and he went in to buy a soda. They also say that the suspect had just helped someone fix a light on their car and then, unprovoked, as you mentioned, walks in, stabs this young man, this 17-year-old, in the back and slits his throat, and then casually walks out and walks down the street while Elijah is left to stumble outside for help. And a bystander is trying to render aid to keep him from bleeding out on the pavement. It's absolutely
Partner technical difficulty. I was on mute for a few seconds, but I do remember that Hurricane JW, Dylan Roof walking into the church in, I think it was Charleston, South Carolina. What always bothered me about that situation is how they allowed him to walk into that church looking the way he looked. You know, some people just don't believe when the wickedness of certain people, and people are inherently evil. And a lot of our people have to actually have it happen to them for them to realize that it could happen to them. It has to happen to them. They can't, they don't have the ability to look at the examples. They don't have that ability. They say, no, that's that. No, these people are wicked. They're wicked. For you to walk inside a church and while they pray, you prayed. You prayed on them while they prayed for you. And he shot them to death. Some of those people that met their demise in that church was from my area in New Jersey, but they moved down there. But they were tied to some people in my city where I live. And one was, I believe, a senator, a congressman, or something. And they just allowed him to walk in that church, looking the way he looked, and you bow your head and close your eyes before such wickedness, letting your guard down. To me, it's absolutely madness, and it's insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again that their predecessors been doing and expecting different results. People didn't change. Nope. Only thing different is the time, but the people didn't change.
Horrendous.
Wow, that is so terrible. Can you just tell us what we actually do know about Elijah, his life, who he was as a young teen?
You know, as heartbreaking as this is and as devastated as his family is, they can't help but lighten up a little bit when they think about him. I mean, this is a young man who was a go-getter, just 17 years old, already working 2 part-time jobs so that he could buy that car that he was driving, and he had just paid to upgrade it even more. He was going into his senior year of high school. His sister says he was even considering getting a 3rd part-time job, and when he graduated, he wanted to do something to try and create his own business. So this was a young man with plans.
Definitely a go-getter, a upstanding young man, and he had his life just taken out by a hateful person.
Ahead of him, and by all accounts, just a fighter who had a bright future ahead of him. And now his family is in absolute disbelief, and at the same time trying to navigate this extreme sadness, also coupled with the extreme anger that they feel from this situation.
All right, Nohalani Graf at our ABC station in Phoenix, thanks so much for the updates on this story. We appreciate it.
Now, the man who it's a man. It's
Remember
another,
the story from Florida about Michael Dunn, the man who shot an unarmed teenager during a dispute over loud music? He has now.
This is a different story where a man pulled up on the side of some young brothers listening to hip hop. They're inside their car. He's on the outside of the car. They're minding their business. He thinks he can just go up to them and tell them to turn the music down. So of course, I would have did the same thing. Flip his ass the bird. You don't tell me that if you don't want to hear my music, walk as far away as possible so you can hear it. But while you up on my vehicle, you're going to hear whatever I'm playing. Period.
Has now been convicted for first-degree murder. This is the story of 47-year-old Michael Dunn. He faced a jury in the death of 17-year-old Jordan Davis, who's a high school student who was killed as he sat in a friend's car at a convenience store park.
And just look at this. This man is 47 years old, and he killed someone 30 years younger than he is. Just killed a child over music because the child, it's a inherited hate for our people. And they think they can just tell us to do something and we have to do it. That's their sentiment. We have to do whatever they say. That's what they think. And this man killed a child because the child, I mean, I think his last name is Duggan, but I don't know if that's the mayor though.
Parking lot. Mr. Dunn was previously convicted on 3 counts of second-degree attempted murder for the teenagers that he missed, and he now has been convicted of murder for the killing of Jordan Davis. This is the right decision. It is at least a step back in the direction of sanity after the insanity of the George Zimmerman case.
I like the verdict, and I hope he's completely miserable in prison, hopefully for the rest of his life.
Well, yes, he, based on Florida law, he is expected to be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The verdict came after around 5 hours of deliberation. Mr. Dunn betrayed absolutely no emotion as it was read, and Mr. Davis's parents, who waited for 2 years for a resolution of the case, almost 2 years, they wept in the courtroom. John Guy, one of the prosecutors, you may recall him from the prosecution team that went after George Zimmerman as well, said, quote, "The defendant didn't shoot Jordan Davis to save his life. He murdered him to preserve his pride." It's not about taking pleasure in people who now have to spend the rest of their life in prison.
Absolutely.
It's about justice, and it is about the application of the law in a fair way. This was no self-defense. This was a confrontation that, to be honest, much like the George Zimmerman case, was a confrontation of choice, in this particular case over loud music.
If only everyone who decided to just start shooting people at will received the same punishment. It's about keeping people like this out of society, and we haven't been doing a good enough job at it.
Nope.
It didn't really affect me no type of way, because it was just a rapper that died. You know what I'm saying? Niggas die every day. That shit ain't had no effect on me.
One beef ended up with 2 bodies going 6 feet under. While 2 gunshot wounds killed rapper BFG Strap, his killer was left faceless after Strap's homies stood over him and made a mash out of his face with bullets. The internet has been left with one huge question: what went down? Keep watching till the end of this video to see why BFG Strap was really shot and killed. Trust me, you don't want to miss this.
This is not a video that I wanted to show. I wanted to to play this video because it's absolutely disgusting on how some of our people want to make it so bad in the industry that they will actually put a hit out on their own mother to get life insurance. A wannabe rapper, I believe he's from the Chicago area, he wasn't good at all as an MC. So he wanted the lifestyle. And what was crazy about it, everything that he had when he put a hit out on his mother, evidently, she was setting him up to be set for his life. His mother was a prominent business owner in the area. Everybody loved her except him. And everything she did, she was doing for him. But he took it upon himself and he put a hit out on his own mother. Just to flex and ball out with the insurance money. Now, mom are they're at near death when they're bringing us into the world. Near death. I can't begin to say what labor pains feel like, but mamas, they take risks to bring us into the world, and a lot of times they sacrifice. When you need something and she needs something, guess who's going to get what they need? You. And this man, young man, I'm not going to call him what I think he is because, it'll be against community guidelines, put it that way. Put a hit out on his mother so he can flex with insurance money. Check it out.
Quamaine Wilson, better known to his fans as Young QC, was an aspiring Chicago rapper before his life spiraled out of control. However, nobody should feel bad for the dreamer, as he did the unthinkable to make some fast cash. While some aspiring rappers have found themselves in prison, QC is the only one who hired a hitman to go after their own mom. How did the desire for money and fame lead this aspiring rapper to such an evil place? Young QC's mother, Yolanda Holmes, spent 15 years owning and operating Nappy Head's hair salon in Chicago. She specialized in natural hair and mastered the art of dreadlocking, twisting, and braiding. Her friends called her Yogi, and they knew her as a kind-hearted person who was very involved with the community. She hosted back-to-school parties for kids every year at the salon and gave out free school supplies to those who couldn't afford them. She was a cheerleader in high school and an extra in the 1986 movie, Wildcats. She didn't have any enemies, so her death was a blow to everyone who knew her. Tia Bovia, a hairdresser.
She had a domestic internal enemy, literal internal, came from her. That's wicked. That is a special kind of wicked.
Dresser at Nappy Heads remembered Yolanda as therapeutic for everyone that sat in her chair. She was a true friend. Eune Holmes, Yolanda's sister, continued to run the salon after Yolanda's death in 2012. However, the emotional toll proved too heavy, and the salon shut down that same year. She said Yolanda loved taking all the nieces and nephews to the water park and bought them new clothes and shoes when she could. Eune recalled how her sister was always there to look out for her and make sure she was okay. The last thing Yolanda wanted was for her only son to end up like his father. QC's father led a Chicago gang and was arrested for murder and aggravated arson in 1990. His crew made everyone on the street pay them protection money. When a narcotics house in their territory refused, he told them to pay up or move out. They didn't budge, so QC's dad set the whole apartment building on fire, and the stubborn dealers perished in the fire. The state served young QC's father with a life sentence that he is still currently serving. Yolanda fit the mold of perfect mother, but that didn't stop tragedy from striking. On a September night in 2012, a man broke into her Chicago apartment and took...
Indeed, brother, I do remember that movie. I mean, can you imagine the mind of a person that would write something like that? I mean, it was a good movie, good theater, a good movie, but that was on somebody's mind, brother.
Took her life. Yolanda's boyfriend Curtis fought the intruder off, but not before getting a good look at his face. The intruder fled, and Curtis returned to Yolanda's side. Sadly, it was too late. Yolanda spoiled young QC every chance she could. He was her only child, and she gave him whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted.
And that is what's wrong with the situation. I see everything wrong with that. You give somebody what they need, or that whatever you want shit, nah. Pampered and spoiled, you are raising a little girl as a boy. If you got a young man, you don't raise him like that. You're raising him to be a little girl. He gonna have them effeminate ways, and Estrogen-filled so-called rapper become real violent.
He wanted it. She bought him a Mustang, a wardrobe of designer clothes, and anything else he wanted. She sent him to private schools.
Peace to my good brother, Key Norfolk. Peace and power, family.
To keep him away from gangs and helped him get jobs to keep him off the streets. In short, she did everything she could and more. But QC was either a psychopath or had some sort of insatiable greed. No matter what Yolanda did, nothing was ever.
What's crazy, and he looked just like her, and he just took his mother out to flex with the insurance money.
Enough. QC had a YouTube channel, which is still up, called QC Works. There are only 16 videos, some of which are his very generic rap singles. Others are part of a dramatic web series called The Nick Story. He wanted to be a rapper, but it's clear from the channel that all he really wanted were the perks of being a rapper. You know, the money, the clothes, the cars, and the attention. If the influencer career path had been a thing 8 years ago, QC would have been drawn to it. Music for the sake of music clearly didn't interest him. In his video descriptions, he called himself one of the top celebrities in the city. An obvious delusion. His heinous crimes are the only reason anybody ever spoke or remembered his name. The most disturbing video on the channel is called Nick Giving Back to His Fans, Part 1, and was posted 8 months after his mother passed away. There are no other parts, although he planned to make more before he was arrested. In it, he drives up to a Chase Bank in Chicago in his Mustang fitted with custom gull-wing doors. He went into the bank with a couple of other guys and talked about how he's withdrawing thousands of dollars to give back to his supposed fans. What he doesn't say in the video is that he inherited this money from his mom after she died. The rest of the video is just him driving around, throwing money at random people around Chicago who clearly don't recognize him. He talks about how he wants to give back. It would almost be funny if it weren't so creepy and sad. He inherited $90,000 after his mom died. He also got money from the multiple life insurance policies Yolanda took out on herself. Even in death, she made sure he would be provided for. After he was arrested, QC admitted to plotting against his mom for financial gain. However, he claimed he didn't want it to go as far as it did. He told the police that he planned to hire someone to rob his mom, and it went south somehow. Hiring someone to rob your mom is still pretty evil, but he wouldn't have gotten 99 years in prison. The getaway driver also claimed that it was supposed to be a robbery. The hitman, Spencer, told the police a very different story. He said that young QC offered him $3,500 to take his mom out. $3,500 might not seem like a lot considering the nature of the job at hand, but apparently it was enough for Spencer because he took the deal. He was no expert assassin, and the hit did not go as planned. Before Wilson walked into Yolanda's apartment, QC told him to make sure the job got done. He broke into Yolanda's apartment.
This is absolutely evil. Evil. And I just hope there was a welcoming committee to the prison he went to, and I hope they make I hope he's miserable. Miserable. Hope he got I hope he got an ear infection, a toothache, his feet hurt. Hope he get lupus. I hope all that shit happened to him at the same damn time.
His apartment where he found her asleep in bed with her boyfriend, Curtis. Spencer shot Yolanda and got in a fight with Curtis. Spencer fled the apartment and called QC to report the job had been done. Apparently, Spencer never realized that if he wanted to get away with this, he would have to deal with the boyfriend who had seen his face. Despite this oversight, the case went unsolved for a year. It wasn't until December 2013 that police made an arrest. It's not uncommon for violent crime to go unsolved in Chicago, as witnesses are often reluctant to come forward out of concern for their safety. Despite QC inheriting $90,000 after the job, he never paid Spencer for the hit. Spencer says he was ultimately paid just $70 for taking Yolanda's life. Is $70 worth 100 years in prison? We don't think so. Ironically, QC wound up on the news before he got arrested. He got on the news because of a totally different incident, not having anything to do with his mom. He attended the funeral of Hadiah Pendleton and happened to be interviewed by a local reporter. He told him that, like Hadiah, his mother had been senselessly murdered. It's pretty eerie to watch him lie directly to the camera talking about his own mother's passing when he himself did it. He's either a complete...
What's crazy about that, he was throwing that money, you know, to his fans, he say, as if he, you know, it's like he's a worse kind of damn perpetrator, the fraud ass nigga, man. He did all that just to get his hands on his mom's money that she was setting up for him to get anyway. Oh, ungrateful bastard.
Completely skilled actor or a complete sociopath to speak like this in public about the whole thing. We'll let you figure out which one he most likely is. Quamaine Wilson was sentenced to 99 years in prison after police uncovered what had happened to his mother. Quamaine had hired a hitman to end her life early. That hitman, Eugene Spencer, got 100 years in prison. Perhaps the court decided that pulling the trigger is 1% worse than paying someone to do it. Either way, they were convicted of first-degree murder and will spend the rest of their lives in jail. Spencer was also convicted of home invasion and aggravated discharge of a firearm as a nice cherry on top. A third person, a getaway driver named Loriana Johnson, received 14 years for participation. 14 years seems like nothing compared to 100, but that's still a significant portion of her life. She was 23 when she was arrested. She'll be 37 when she gets out. The proper term for QC's crime...
Greetings to Doe Eyes. Thanks for tapping in, sis.
...crime is matricide. QC repaid his mother's love with pure betrayal, a choice that disgusted the judge and most likely played a role in his sentencing. The judge then asked young QC if he had anything to say after being sentenced. QC replied, "Nobody loved my mother more than me. She was all I had. There were probably people who loved her more than the guy who hired her."
And when he said that, if I was in that courtroom, what it would have took, I would have had to be restrained, to put it that way. You do this to your mother, and you're going to say, nobody loved her more than you. She was all you had, and you the one who had her taken away from you. She met her demise because of you, because you wanted to live like a rapper. You wanted to throw money. You wanted to take and give the money she provided for you. She saved for you. You wanted to throw it around. You wanted to just throw it. It's just how ungrateful this bastard is.
...hired a hitman to go after her, but that didn't get brought up in court. QC's defense attorney has told the press that they have plans to appeal, but they've been unsuccessful so far. He argued without real reason that the judge shouldn't have been on the case and that the police interrogation was coercive. So far, no judge has agreed with him, and it...
First, he confessed. He confessed. So I don't know how they're going to appeal a sentence from a confession. Makes no sense.
Doesn't look like young QC has any real chance of getting out of jail unless he lives to be 130. Yolanda's death and QC's involvement shocked the entire community. Based on their seemingly loving relationship, nobody ever expected QC to hurt his own mother. Perhaps his love of money won the day. Yolanda managed to keep QC off the streets and out of gangs. He was by no means a violent person before that night in September.
He was given anything he wanted. He was coddled, and he wasn't raised to be a man. That's the problem. That's the main problem. He wasn't raised to be a man. Whenever a grown-ass man say, "Mom, could I have this?" and she just willingly give it to him, you're not raising him to be a man.
By all accounts, he and his mom got along perfectly and were actually very close to each other. QC was denied bail due to the heinous nature of his crime, force he demonstrated afterward. During his trial, the prosecutors played the video where QC goes to the bank. They also played a video where he's flexing in a mirror with a gold chain and a bunch of $100 bills. It didn't exactly make the jury feel very sympathetic towards him. QC's defense attorney said that showing the videos was unfair and only proved that QC was bad. When your defense attorney calls you a bad person in court, you know things aren't going well. The jury deliberated for 2 hours before they convicted him. Ironically, young QC would get the fame he always wanted after the trial, but he couldn't profit from it. The true crime show, Suspicious Minds, aired an episode about him called Chi-Town Gossip. He probably would have loved seeing himself on TV if he didn't have to watch from a prison cell. Quamaine's aunt, Yanae Holmes, said after the trial, "I was hoping it wasn't him. I'm glad we got closure. I'm trying to figure out why he would do such a thing." Yolanda did everything for him. Click to watch one of these next videos.
I want to thank everybody for coming through this evening. I'm going to land right there. I appreciate everyone for coming through, joining your brother this evening. I'd like to thank the sister Doe Eyes, my brother Hurricane JW, my brother Key Norfolk, my brother Big Dog Philly OG, my brother Leonard D. Yuda. Thanks for tapping in. My brother P. Moses, my brother The Smokers Lounge, TSL, Chris Cyphers. Thank you for tapping in. I appreciate it. I'd like to thank Miss Sister Enemies Public, my wife. I know she's watching. She always watch. On my way up, babe. So I'm about to land this right now. I'd like to thank you all for joining me. Until next time, this is your brother Nasir, and this is the Enemies Public. Peace.